Welcome. Module A, Introduction to Urban Transportation Systems Planning, and this will be covered in 1 week. Today is the first lecture where we will cover urbanization, urban transportation and the transport demand. As you know that the country is going through rapid urbanization. Population is growing and economic growth is also there, which are altogether boosting the urbanization in the country. As you can see in the figure, the share of urban population is growing steadily over the last several decades, and presently nearly 32% of Indian population are living in urban areas. And with the current trend, in future soon we will have nearly 50% of population staying in urban areas. So, the whole country, in the whole country, the urbanization is happening very fast. There are several factors which are actually causing this urbanization to happen faster, namely population growth. As you know, the country is, the population is also growing. Lot of migrations do happen. I mean, people come from rural area to urban area because of various reasons, getting the facilities, better education, health care, better recreational facilities, all the things are there. Then the cities and towns are also expanding. If you look at the towns, all the big towns or the mega cities in India, they are expanding. So, whatever was the boundary of say Calcutta or Bombay, practically the city boundary has boundaries have expanded. So, as a result, altogether the share of urban population is increasing and India is actually showing a very distinct trend of urbanization. The number of urban agglomerations and the cities is also increasing. Here in the right hand side, I have shown how the million plus population cities, number of million plus population cities is increasing in India. You can say that there is a very steady growth, and as per the projection around 2021-22, we are expected to have nearly 70 cities in India where 1 million or more population will live. So, that shows the magnitude of urbanization and the kind of transformation that is taking place in Indian scenario. The big question here is the urbanization happening the way it is expected or desirable? The answer is probably no. Most of our cities are not planned cities, and the urbanization is not really taking place in a very systematic manner. Now, this urbanization, because more people are living in urban area, the travel demand is also increasing. More people are living, so more people want to travel. So, obviously, the overall travel demand in urban area is also increasing. Here I have shown an interesting representation of indexed estimated growth in travel demand. Why it is indexed? That means 1980 is, if we take the 1980 as 100, then how the growth has happened over years, that is shown here for a few cities. The interesting part is, you may not be able to read everything, it is not necessary also, but look at this red line. This red line shows how the estimated growth has happened for India, and what we find that the increase is almost 8 times since 1980. This again shows that not only the urbanization is happening, but overall the travel growth in India is enormous, and definitely it is going to be very similar if not higher in urban Indian context. As I said that because of urbanization and because simply more people are living in urban areas, we need an efficient transportation system to support this ever increasing urban travel demand. Because people, if people stay in an urban area, people are required to move out. They want to travel. They want to travel to various destinations for various purposes. People want to go to school, college, shopping areas, for medical requirements. Number of things are there in urban areas and they need to travel. So, we need an efficient transport system to support this level of urbanization and to support this level of requirement of travel. Also, often in urban area, we observe complex activity patterns. People go, people need to, there are different types of land use, different activities located in different places. So, we need an efficient transportation system for ensuring the vitality of the urban area. So, in urban area obviously always look very vibrant if the transport system is good. In fact, I would say for me the very first impression I develop about any place is through its transport system. Whenever I travel to a place, the moment I come out of the railway station or airport and get the first impression about the city or the place is through its transportation system. Now, it is important for all of us to appreciate and understand clearly that transportation has a strong influence on the growth of an urban area and which may promote or hinder development and vice versa. That means, what I am trying to say or indicate here, see, a city cannot grow unless its transportation system is good. I mean, if all around the city you cannot move, the roads are bad and the traffic is congested always, and the city cannot grow, because the economy rolls on transport. So, unless the transport system is good, the cities cannot grow further. The second part, what I am trying to say is that the transport system may act as a catalyst to promote the development in certain geographical region. Say the city is expanding and you have open land which you also want to include and recognize as a part of future development of the city. Now, this you want to promote the development, the best thing would be to have good road connectivity or rail connectivity. In general, I could say the transport connectivity, and also to have good public transportation system. So, if you just have a good public transportation system connecting to this place and good road system or rail system, as I said, then you will find automatically that area will develop. So, if you want to promote the development of an area or in a particular geographical region, the best thing is to develop its transportation system. So, one way, since the place is developed, you will require, people need to travel, so you will require transportation system. So, development also put pressure on the requirement of transportation development. And if you want to improve the transport system or think of the transport system development, that will also boost up the development of the overall area. Now, one way, because simply urbanization is happening and more people are staying in urban area. So, naturally more people want to travel. So, there is a pressure on the transportation system, right, the demand is more. The other thing is also happening that the travel demand initially we can measure in terms of the number of person trips, say if we are talking about passenger transport. So, people want to move, right. So, it is basically the passenger transport. but then the percentage eventually gets transformed into vehicular trips. Somebody using bus, somebody using car, somebody using two-wheeler, right. So, when you see a road, it is full of traffic. So, the passenger trips somewhere getting converted into number of vehicle trips. So, end of the day, that vehicle trips actually matter, because how much is the road space available, what is the road capacity, and how many vehicles are trying to use that road. So, there we find that along with the increase in the overall urban population, which is anyhow creating the higher travel demand and creating pressure on the existing transport system, travel demand is also further aggravated due to increase in the use of private vehicles. If we see, India is really a big market for the cars. You can see lot of companies, even Indian manufacturer, foreign manufacturers, they are all they have outlets in India, and the economy is growing, developing. There are tremendous aspiration among youths to own private vehicle, we cannot deny that. So, higher the private vehicle usage, obviously the same number of persons to carry, you need more vehicles, because if you just consider 50 people going in a bus, and if 50 of them they want to go by private vehicle theoretically, then that will mean 50 vehicle on roads. So, in terms of congestion, in terms of everything, they will mean entirely different urban transport scenario. So, this is also again very important thing. One more important thing in this context is percentage share of trips, but public transport, it ever decreasing due to its less attractiveness. So, the left side I have shown a figure here, you can see how the total registered vehicle is growing in India, right. So, you can clearly see that this is the kind of growth that is really happening. So, and this growth is happening because of the primarily the growth of private vehicles. Why I am saying, if you go to the right side, you can see this is actually the share of public transport that is happening, and I have shown starting right from 1951, the lowest bar is for 1951 and the top one is for 2011, right. So, you can see that the share is really decreasing. So, look at this situation here, somewhere this is a small share of trips that is taken by public transport, whereas in 1951 that share was somewhere here, and in between if I have to say, it is here, it is further getting reduced and so on. So, you can clearly see the number is not important, you cannot remember the number, but this message is very important, that the share of trips by public transport, okay, that is the percentage of vehicle, I have said here in terms of percentage of vehicle. So, the percentage of vehicle in the overall vehicle population, that is showing a declining trend if we consider buses. The same thing is true even for the share of trips that are made by public transport, both in terms of percentage of vehicles and percentage of trips shared by public transport, both cases there is a declining trend. Although looking at this pressure, so what is really happening because of all this, one more thing is very important for you to understand, that transportation in most Indian cities is basically road based transport. The primary form of transport is basically road based. Then there are different modes, right. The water transport, the rail transport, the share for all this transport is really negligible. So, one way to how much and how the demand is getting served? Demand is getting served primarily by road based transportation system. Now, if there is so much of urbanization, people are more and more people living in urban area, more and more people want to travel. There is also a change in the preference of personalized mode, like private vehicle more and more getting used by vehicle and preferred by people, public transport share in terms of composition, in terms of the share of trips is reducing. So, what we need, and it is all road based transport. So, then what we need? We want definitely more physical capacity of road infrastructure, more wider road, okay, more or new roads, because otherwise how we will be able to accommodate the growing demand. So, we need to widen the roads, we need to enhance the road capacity. Unfortunately, that is not really happening. If you look at the thing, road capacity has not been augmented up to the level and has always lagged far behind due to physical and fiscal constraints. What I mean by fiscal constraints and what I mean by physical constraints. Fiscal constraints is okay, you may not have sufficient fund really to develop infrastructure. That may be true, and also it is true for Indian scenario. We have limited fund, every country we have got limited fund. Okay. So, some cases, some towns, some cities, some urban agglomeration, you are not able to develop infrastructure, maybe because of the shortage of fund. That is one kind of problem. The other is more severe problem, I would say, is the physical constraints. Now, why I am saying physical constraint? Because if you look at these cities, the urbanization, as I indicated, has not happened the way it is desirable, right. So, they are not Indian cities and towns are not planned development, just the growth has happened. So, because they are not planned development, we have less road space, and also you cannot widen road. Look at the city, if some of you are from urban area, or if you know, right, Bombay or Calcutta or even many other urban areas, right. How much is the scope really to widen road? You cannot widen, because both sides of the road are already fully developed, and it will mean maybe land acquisition, dismantling the existing structures or housing, you cannot do that. So, as a result, even if you have money, if somebody gives you a lot of money, say okay, your city, the transportation problem is very severe, so you take a lot of money and you widen all the roads. Physically you cannot make it happen. You cannot think of any new road, because you cannot take a road through the land, new road through the land, because you will not get open land, all are developed mostly, right. And you cannot run a road completely unless between 2 points you are able to run the entire road. I cannot say okay, I have got 200 meter develop a road, it does not give the connectivity in that sense. So, what is really happening altogether, what we find, there is a huge imbalance between the transport demand and transport supply in the road transport sector in urban context. So, there is a huge imbalance. So, what is really then we can do? So, obviously, there are several efforts taken up by the Government of India and also by several state governments to improve the urban transport, knowing that there are problems. Say for example, several cities in India are trying to develop metro network. Now, whether it is good to develop metro, whether for all cities we really should go ahead or metro or not, that is a different question, because metro is a enormously capital intensive project, right. So, it is not very much like every city, okay, let us go for metro, it is not a luxury, and one has to think really properly how much cost we can recover. We are not even able to recover probably the operation, part of the operational cost, that is the kind of situation. So, several other cities are going for BRTS, bus rapid transit system, and so many other initiatives are being taken up. So, I cannot say that nothing is really happening, lot of things are happening. But if you look at the urban areas in India, you will find still there are issues, and because of this imbalance we have serious issues of externalities which are directly affecting the quality of urban life. People go to urban areas hoping that they will have a better quality of life, but the transport itself, and of course not only transport, there are several other health sector and so many other things are there, education, health, so many other things are there. But I would say that transport is one of the major areas, and severely the quality of life is getting impacted because of the externalities which is coming out of this imbalance between the demand and supply in the transport sector. So, what are the externalities? Primary externalities, I would say congestion, traffic congestion, then inefficient energy use and energy management, then road safety issues, lot of accidents are happening. Most urban areas are air pollution level is much higher than what is the safe limits. So, the emission, the congestion, the energy, the safety, all these are externalities out of transport sector, and the whole struggle is there how to really mitigate these externalities, how to address the concerns related to these externalities if we want to live a good life or a higher better quality of life in urban area. So, overall the urban transport scenario has emerged as a major area, and we need to focus and do something to address these major concerns which are related to our externalities, namely congestion, energy, accident, emission, etc. Now, with this we said about transport demand, but let us relook at the transport demand, because there is something more for us to understand. Transport demand relates to not only the amount, but also the characteristics of the travel under specified condition. How many people are traveling? That is obviously the number or the quantity or the amount. But it is also important about the characteristics of travel. Say for example, are they traveling really a longer distance or a shorter distance? So, same trips, if they are traveling longer, that means you are spending more energy, more emission and everything, right. By which mode they are using? If people are walking, probably we have no issue, because it is a sustainable mode. There is no pollution, no energy related issues, okay. No traffic congestion also, because people are walking, right. So, it depends on by which mode they are working, for what purpose they are making trips, how long or short is the trip length, okay. And so, these characteristics of travel is also very, very important. So, both the amount and the characteristics are important when we are talking about the transport demand. The second thing what you must understand, that transport is a derived demand. What I mean by the derived demand? Suppose it is not consumed because there is a direct demand for it, okay. So, nobody consumes, like most of the products which are demanded are consumed directly, right. But here the transport is not consumed automatically or demanded automatically, it is demanded because of something else. What I mean again? You stay somewhere, live somewhere, you want to go to school, school is located in a different place. Your shopping area is located or market is located in a different place. Medicines are available in a different locations, or health facility, hospitals are available in a different location. So, there are activities and spatially distributed, and you want to get access to those activities, so you need to travel, right. That is what I said, the transport is a derived demand, as person demands to be transported because he or she wants to achieve some other purpose, such as reaching to school or office or theatre. The two other things which are important again, one is that the temporal characteristics of the demand. Road is a physical element, it is a physical infrastructure, right. So, once we develop a 2-lane road or a 4-lane road, right, the capacity is same, hourly how many vehicles it can accommodate, that capacity is fixed, but your demand is not fixed over time. The same road at 10 o'clock where lot of congestion, in night time, night 10 o'clock, if you go there, you will find there is no congestion because there is no demand, right. 6 o'clock in the morning the scenario and 10 o'clock in the morning in office hours, the scenarios are entirely different. So, we have to remember in this aspect that the transport demand has a temporal characteristics. So, the time really is a function. How much is the demand? It depends on at what time we are talking about. The scenario, what time we are referring to. Is it morning 10 o'clock? Is it evening 5 o'clock? Is it night 10 o'clock? Is it weekend? It depends. The second is, not all roads in an urban area is equally congested. So, there are multiple roads in an urban area. All roads are equally congested? The answer is no. Maybe some road, somewhere there is more demand, somewhere there is less demand. So, there is a special characteristics of the demand. So, when we talk about the demand, there is a time dimension, there is a locational dimension. So, what we say as temporal characteristics and the spatial characteristic. So, remember that temporal characteristics, remember about spatial characteristics, remember that it is a derived demand, and all these are important for us when we are trying to address the issues related to transport and trying to handle this imbalance between demand and supply of transport. Now, there are several factors which influence the transport demand. For example, demographics, how many people are living, what are their age, lifestyle, life cycle, what are their preference, then also the area, what related factors related to say economics. So, for example, how many jobs are there, if in a city or in a place, town, there are a lot of jobs, naturally more people will come there and more people will travel. Similarly, the tourist activity, tourist destination, then a lot of you can expect a lot of people to come from outside because it is a tourist destination. The price is another important indicator because transport demand is always elastic, right, and always there is a demand elasticity with respect to price. The price goes up, the demand will get influenced, and for most commodities including transport, the price goes up, the demand will come down. So, how much is the demand depends on what is the price in that way. Price means in this case say public transport, you want to use a bus, how much fare you have to pay, or if you want to travel by car, then what is the price you have to pay for petrol or diesel depending on which type of car you are using, or how much toll you have to pay, what is the maintenance cost. Then it also depends on transport options. What are the alternatives available to us? I mean, we want to travel from point A to point B. Can we walk? Is it a distance which you have roads, you have also equally footpaths available, nice footpaths available, and the trip length is reasonable for you to walk. If not, then what are the other transport modes, motorized modes, what are the options available? Maybe bus may be available, maybe taxi is available, shared auto or shared taxi may be available, private vehicle may be available. So, what are the transport mode? Depends on that the transport demand also get influenced. Similarly, the transport demand also depends on the service quality. What is the quality of service? If the city is too congested, if travel is really a problem and safety is a major issue, transport security is also a major issue, you want to travel but you do not get the parking place, okay. There are a lot of things, right, related to this, which altogether determine the quality, service quality of the transport, overall sense I am saying. We can even think deeper, going to each category of service and then see what is the kind of level of service or service quality that the service is offering. But overall service quality it influences. Similarly, the land use, your requirement, suppose if your market is located even in the next building, a kind of mixed development, simply you may not be required to travel as well, right. But if there are market is one location and residence is purely in another location, school are entirely in another part of the city, obviously you have to travel more. So, it depends on the what is the density, what kind of, whether it is a mixed land use, what is the walkability, how the connectivity of that area. So, the land use and spatial distribution, that really will influence. Similarly, the travel behavior is again another very important issue. Decision making by individual, the options may be there. I may have 3 options, but which options I am taking, that is my decision. So, every individual will make, and every time they are making multiple decisions about transport, where to live, where to go, by which mode to go, by which route to take if it is a private vehicle. So, all these decisions together decide how many vehicles will be there at a given location at a given time, and whether that vehicle load will be adequate, you will have adequate road capacity to handle the vehicle load, right. So, the travel behavior is also very important. So, if I have to summarize, I will say what we discussed today about the rapid urbanization that the country is experiencing due to population growth, due to economic growth, right. The second is that our transport is predominantly road based transportation. There is a growth of private vehicle usage and ownership and usage. There is a public transport share in now both in terms of vehicle and the share of trips is reducing, and as a result there is a huge imbalance in the urban transport sector, right. This imbalance is bringing or augmenting or aggravating the externalities such as congestion, such as safety issues, such as emission, such as energy related aspects. Then with that we tried to relook at the transport demand and tried to see that transport demand, it is not only the amount of travel, but the characteristics are important. We noted down that transport demand is temporal, transport demand is spatial, and transport is a derived demand. Then we identified various factors which influence the transport demand, and with those factors today we close our first lecture. Thank you so much.